All right, I was almost worried that we weren't going to go live. That somehow he messed it up. But hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Practically Tactical. This is our live show streaming to you on YouTube. You can catch all of our shows on iTunes in a podcast format. New episodes are usually dropping on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere in there. I have an awesome show for you guys tonight. We are working through a couple difficulties here. For some reason, Keith has been put into Practically Tactical timeout. So hopefully he will be joining us. But we at least have his other partner in crime here, Trek from MDFI. Thanks for coming on and talking about this. I think hopefully we'll get Keith in here, but it's going to be an awesome show.
Absolutely.
So for everybody out there watching on YouTube, be sure to check the links down below to check these guys out. Firearms instructors, and you guys are doing a lot of traveling. We're going to hit on that when we fully start the show here. But for you guys out there watching, this is going to be an awesome topic. So the topic of tonight's show is self-defense more than a gun. So think about in your mind about what you carry, where you go, what else, what tools are you putting in your toolbox to go along with your gun. And this is basically our great segue into EDC April. From all the next 5 episodes will all be based on EDC episodes. So put those questions in the chat, and we'll hit on those as we go throughout the show here. So also, if you guys be sure to click that like and share button. It would really, really help us spread the word about the show on YouTube, because there's going to be some really good content in this show. But I don't have any pre-podcast show announcements, so let's start the show. Well, welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 66, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show is a slightly more practical approach to the firearms lifestyle. The show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, and shooting with some of the best firearms instructors, shooters, and figures in the firearms industry. For more information on the show, links to our guest guns and gear we discuss, please visit practacpodcast.com/066. On this episode, we will start our segue into EDC April as we discuss self-defense more than a gun with Trek, and hopefully Keith will be joining us. We're having some issues here from MDFI. Trek, thank you for coming on, sir. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me as always.
So, real quick here, because you guys have been starting to travel all over here, so we have listeners all over the world. Not that you guys are necessarily going to travel the world, but it could happen. Costa went to Japan. I mean, I would love to see you on a runway in Japan.
I've been working for the great Costa Utrecht walk-off, which hopefully will one day happen.
So, but I know you guys got classes coming up in Illinois, Texas. Update some people where you're going, so that way if there's people out there listening that are fortunate enough to be near you guys, where you guys are headed, that they could train with you. Where are you guys going to be at?
Absolutely. We've had quite a few comments. We need to start changing MDFI from the Michigan Defensive Firearms Institute to the Midwest Institute. We're going to be all over the place. Most importantly, big change that we had, we're not going to be in Alliance, Ohio for our shoot house. Some financial issues with the city came up, and so the helm's sort of been taken over by Sentinel Concepts, Pat Rogers down there, going to be running the shoot house. We had the opportunity to go out to the site in Illinois, so all of our home defense shoot house classes are going to be there, and it's a great, built by Blackwater. It's going to be a great facility for us to train. We get to incorporate a lot of new things that we couldn't do at the old shoot house. We'll be traveling out to California, Texas, North Carolina with Solo Defense, A.A. Ron B. Rumbley. Looking forward to another great time with him, and then also out to Arizona. So we're going to be all over the place.
Wow. You're venturing into California. You're brave. You're brave.
You got to do it once or twice in your life just to see what it's like.
And the class out there, I'm assuming, will be how to drink your latte. One part one, part two.
That's the first week. The second week, we're actually going to branch off a little bit. We're going to do a less lethal class, which is great. We're going to talk about that tonight, and also our emergency casualty care class. So no live firearms usage.
Okay. So that's all. Again, trainmdfi.com. If you guys aren't familiar with MDFI, go check them out, please. Awesome. And again, for my fellow Wisconsinites that are looking for somebody to train with,
come to Illinois.
The site is literally, I think it's like 10 minutes past the border. When I was looking at the map, so it is not far away from fellow Wisconsinites. So be sure to check that out. Again, I know the link to the site is on Train MDFI for the classes they have coming up. So I want to move on to operator support, and I just want to touch on this just a little bit. We touched on it the last episode, but I want to get your thoughts on it, Trek. Being a firearms instructor, and obviously I know you carry a Glock, among other guns. There's probably one in your right hand right now. Glock 43. now that the things have calmed down a little bit about it. Just real quickly, what you have any initial thoughts? Any positives, negatives? Happy with the 6+1? Don't like the 6+1? What are your initial thoughts on it?
The biggest thing when you start to take a look at, and this is just my opinion and Keith's opinion, you break down defensive handguns into two primary groups. You have what we would call a fighting gun, and you have a defensive gun. A Glock 19, Glock 17, 34, 41, 21, 30, all of these larger frame Glocks, they definitely fall into the duty gun or fighting gun category. The Glock 42, people poo-pooed it, and there's still people out there poo-pooing it. The fact is they sold who knows how many. The Glock 43 is going to sell. It's going to do very well. I imagine just like most things Glock. I mean, look at Magpul when they released the Glock magazines. They said the same boring reliability. I think you're going to find that it has the same exact reliability. Don't quote me on that because just like the Gen 4s, there were some hiccups. But like everything new, there's going to be some issues to work over. They're going to sell a ton of them. From what I understand, it's smaller than the Shield by ever so slightly. The only issue I see, the Shield has the price point. So I think some people may go with the Shield for the same thing. It's going to do well. I look forward to getting my hands on one. 6+1 rounds, yeah, it's not as much as a Glock 19, but and this is something that we as gun people, especially those of us in the training and firearms industry, need to get over, is that we may dress around our guns. Our life may revolve around the firearms industry, but the average Joe, they don't. They want a firearm that they can carry. They want a firearm that they can conceal. They want something that fits the bill, but they may not go and spend their entire life dedicated to the true American martial art of gun fu. And if it sells well and they carry it, if they're responsible and they're carrying something, if it's 6+1 rounds and it's an armed, responsible citizen that's better than the Glock 19 that they won't carry because it's just too much for them to conceal. So I think it's going to do very well. I hope to have a lot more to report as soon as we start to see them, and we will see them in 2016 especially. They'll probably be flooding our classes, no doubt.
Oh, I bet. And well, I at least know that there was one Glock 42 sold. This is my Glock 42 assault clip with the +2 and then the Galloway Precision springs. I just put those in today.
There you go.
But so there's at least one. By the way, Sweaty Money Bloody, Stipple Job, and ATEI. Awesome stuff. For you guys that aren't familiar with them, I just put out a video on it. It's very popular. Go check it out. But let's go ahead and move into our main segment here. So when you say self-defense is more than a gun, what you really mean is you just need to carry two guns, right?
Absolutely. No, it's sure. The right answer there is why not. But the big reason for that title, self-defense more than a gun, is so many people think, well, I have my CPL, I have a firearm, I carry my firearm, I am completely done with my self-defense bubble, my 360-degree coverage of self-defense, and they couldn't be farther from the truth. And we were talking about this right before we went live. There are a lot of landmines out there in the internet world, and talking about options other than a firearm in most chat groups will turn into just an absolute derp fest within the span of a few posts.
That is very true. And also, I just saw we had a bunch of people join too. For all you guys out there watching, if you put your questions in the YouTube chat stuff, we'll be happy to answer those during the show. So for the rest of the show, then I can just take this and throw it, right? I'm just gonna throw it. So no. we'll drop it for there. Don't worry, I'm still carrying like two on me, but we'll do that. So when we kind of evaluate, carrying more than a gun, and we'll hit on the mental stuff because obviously, again, we can fantasize and, do awesome things to all these tools, right? They're tools. But again, the tool is only as good as the person wielding it, correct?
Absolutely.
So when we look at, the carrying more than a gun, so if, not to jump in too much because we got to save our EDC stuff for next episodes here, when you, just from a general standpoint, from students that you train, and I'm sure you probably get this a lot. What should I carry? What are the bare necessities that you think a person who concealed carry should have on them? And then we'll break that down.
You know what? That's such a great question, and I'm gonna. Hey, look at that! Looks like Keith might have joined us. That's such a loaded question because the answer that I'm going to give you about it is this needs to be good to go. All of the different tools are going to completely differ for each and every person, where they're at, what they're doing, and the day of the week that it is. And what I mean by that is people live in different areas, different laws. They have different employment rules. In fact, I just met a gentleman that was all about training, but he was telling me, he's like, I'd show you my gun right now, just so you can tell me what you think about it, but unfortunately at work I'm not allowed to carry. So we actually got into a discussion about, well, have you thought about when you are disarmed by choice, which is exactly what that is. It's not an illegal choice that he's making. He's choosing to be disarmed so he doesn't lose his job, and we can understand that. A lot of people do it. There is no right or wrong answer, but you have to be educated on use of force before you even think about carrying any defensive tool, and that includes what we have attached to our body, our hands and our feet, even our words. We have to have the knowledge of when we can use them, when we can't use them, and when it's time to drop one tool and go to another. And you brought up such a great point with the Glock 42. Yeah, we may take our time and we may spend money to have it serrated. We might have sweaty, muddy, bloody stipple it. But doesn't an off-road driver make sure that their vehicle is set up for off-road? Doesn't a street racer make sure their car is set up for street racing? So there's nothing wrong with us taking the time to make sure that one defensive tool is at its maximum potential for us as the user. But just understand that street racer who just put those racing slicks on his car, who can hug every turn at 90 miles an hour, the moment he goes off-road, the guy in the beat-up pickup truck who's set it up for off-roading has got him. And so you have to be prepared for when one tool is not the appropriate for the situation.
And I see Keith has joined us, and he's wearing his happy face right now.
Looks like it.
I don't want to talk about it.
We're glad you are out of the Practically Tactical timeout, and we're able to join us. So
I learned my lesson. I won't do it again. Yeah, I just missed a call from Mike Lamb, by the way, to hang out with you turds.
Oh, totally not worth it. Totally.
No, not even a little bit.
Go back to timeout.
Yeah. Okay, so, and you're right, and definitely a loaded question, because how, and maybe this will be a good way to maybe kind of break it down, is how, and again, too, this again depends on every single person, but can you maybe offer some tips, and again, Keith, jump in wherever here, for a person to evaluate what they should carry? Like a new guy walking in, I'll maybe walk this back for a second. So when I first started getting into firearms, and for all the listeners out there, they should know my story. If not, go check out episode 23. When you come in, there's a lot of things that you don't know because you just don't know.
Right.
So, I look at all this stupid crap that I bought. Like I have a junk drawer behind me just full of stupid stuff that I bought, and some stupid chest rig that holds everything you would ever need.
I think it's cute that you call it a junk drawer. I call it the man cave. That's everything that we own, basically. In one room.
Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate enough that, starting the show and talking with you guys, I've learned just so much. But, there's a lot of things that you can only learn when you kind of go through it. But, are there any steps that we can take to maybe save people some of those potholes that, maybe we took early on of evaluating what they need to carry?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I can say would be a good starting point is you have to evaluate, when this is purely defense, you have to evaluate the three primary areas of defense, or the use of force. And the first one is the best one. It's the one that we deal with all the time. Our use of force is at the, basically, when you talk law enforcement, they call it the compliant level, which is no force. That's as simple as you and I meeting on the street, and I hold the door open for you, and you say, oh, hey, thanks a lot, man, and I say, not a problem, and we go about our separate ways. We didn't have to use force in any way, but we interacted. And so right there, one of the biggest things is, especially as a responsible citizen, do you have the emotional capability to be a normal, decent human being? And most people do. So if you can just go about in society and not make waves and just be a polite member of society, that's great. The next level that you have is assault, where somebody is literally trying to use force on you in some way, shape, or form that's not going to cause death or serious bodily harm. They're going to use force on you. You have to have some sort of defensive plan to deal with that type of threat. And this is where it gets dangerous, because just like we were talking about earlier, there's so many people out there that think because they carry a gun, they can say, oh, if somebody tries to put their hands on me, I'm just going to face shoot them with my J-frame. And what they've done is they've associated people that exist in this non-lethal yet dangerous use of force level with the one that we train with firearms for, which is a lethal threat. And lethal, you know, go through your state definition. Constitutional use of force is serious bodily harm or death. Where it gets really gray and where we've seen a lot of court cases is the definition of serious bodily harm or death. And that's where if someone dies, it's pretty easy. They caused death. But if they were trying to cause serious bodily harm, that's where some gray area exists. But the people that do the use of force by firing their gun, they can say, I firmly believed that my life and limb were in jeopardy. So right there, you have to analyze those three areas before you can even start picking out what Gucci accessory you're going to add to your bat belt. And that's the biggest thing.
How many Gucci things are on your bat belt, Keith?
5. No less than 5.
At any certain time. Well, that to kind of maybe set up this next part here is, so in a Facebook group I just had mentioned, you know, and again too, and I am by no means accusing them of anything. I'm in the same boat as probably all of them. I do not carry any less, I don't want to say non-lethal, I like to say less than lethal types of self-defense products.
Yes, you do.
I mean, other than, you know, my voice, my feet, you know, I'm talking actual like pepper spray or mace.
Okay, there's a reason I said that, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so actual products, and then you know, there's a whole course of discussion, which was great, and a lot of people are either like 0 to 100, and I'm going to phrase that with as in 0, nothing's happening, I'm getting away, I'm leaving, you know, I'm not getting involved in the situation, or there's 100 that I'm pulling my gun. I'm face blasting the dude, and that's it. There's no, you know, it's white, black. That's it. Right. And I think that Brandon, that was on episode 63, put in that, you know, us concealed carriers, while there's white and black, you know, there's this lawful, there's the law, and then there's the righteous part. Us as concealed carriers, we have to play this gray area a lot as laws change, rules change, and this type of stuff. And so I wanted to kind of jump into this less than lethal area here because it's something we haven't hit on, but you guys have a show coming up in California, or you're doing a training in California on this, by the way. So I'm going to try to plug you guys as much as I can during the show on that. But when a person evaluates, okay, do I need a less than lethal? Should I carry a less than lethal? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, the need is you don't need anything until you need it. I mean, that's the simple answer to a way more complicated problem. It all comes down to preparedness. It all comes down to, you know, like Trek mentioned earlier, focusing on the gun, focusing on making sure you have the best gun, the best holster, the best belt, the best mags, you know, spare magazines, the best night sights, the best lights, and all those things for that one instance of self-defense. While there's a myriad of other situations you can find yourself in that do not warrant a firearm, I highly recommend pepper spray at the very least. It's not end-all, be-all by any means, but it's definitely something that you can use with a less aggression of force towards yourself that can give you time, that can make people think twice about what they're doing. So I know Trek will echo it. We highly recommend carrying at least just a small can of pepper spray or something. You know, there's JPX projectors, there's tasers, there's all kinds of stuff. But out of all of them, probably pepper spray is the least impacted of all of them as far as weight and bulk to carry.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the best way to do it, and this is the way I explain it. And this is, you know, if you're coming to our California class, close your eyes, just don't listen to this because I do talk about it. But so we take out no force. We talked about that, and let's take out use of the gun, the constitutional use of force against a deadly threat. So now we have only assault. There are 4 defensive planes that we can deal with at any given time. And I'll start from farthest away, and that quite simply is too far. So that means that whatever the bad guy has, whatever we have, we are both too far away to impact the other physically or mentally with the tools that we have on our body. Okay, so that's easy. That could be as simple as you can use that in a firearm where if a guy's out of range, he's out of range. That could be artillery, it could be a handgun, it could be anything. The next level in that we have is artificial reach. Artificial reach means that we are using a tool that has been designed for self-defense at the assaultive level to reach out and touch someone. Okay, so take the average keychain pepper spray device that I've been hit with over 10 times. You're lucky if you get 6 feet. More realistically, 3 to 4 feet on a good day with no wind. Okay, so that's 3 to 4 feet measured out from the farthest extension away from your body. So if your hand is outstretched, now you've got a good artificial reach. The next level in is at what we call arm's length. So if you and I both put out our arms and we can touch fingers, that's at basically striking distance. And then we have what we call wrapped up, which if you meet somebody with mixed martial arts, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, whatever it might be, now you're in their play zone and you're going to be in a ground fight. So my question to everybody, there is no tool that you must carry. There is no tool that you need to carry. If you can, and the concern comes up, well, I don't wear a bat belt when I go out. Neither do I. And Keith and I, we blue jeans, Aries gear, Aegis belt, button-up shirt, we carry our gun, but we will always put some sort, if possible, some sort of artificial reach tool, not relying on it because that bad guy could close the distance on us, and now if we try to use pepper spray when we're wrapped up, we just coated 2 idiots with pepper spray instead of 1. So what I'm saying is, why deny yourself the ability to potentially get somebody out of their range and you can then go ahead and make an escape, or it puts them at a disadvantage if they try to encroach on your distance and you have to go to a hand-to-hand defense. And that's one of the biggest things. People believe that when we say we're pro less lethal, that they think that we're telling them they must. And they're also thinking, and this is huge, and Keith is about to nod his head, when you carry a less lethal, people think that you must use it before using your gun. And that could not be farther from the truth. People believe that if this guy goes lethal and you're carrying pepper spray, that I must use my pepper spray, it doesn't work, and then I have to use my gun. If that guy goes lethal, you take whatever you had in the less lethal category and you throw it off you because it's worthless. You go exactly to deal with that lethal threat. And that means taking a less lethal tool like pepper spray, and if it has alcohol in it, dousing him and lighting him on fire. Because at that point in time, it does not matter how you stop a lethal threat. And that's huge.
Just to let everybody know there, too, there is a Indiegogo campaign starter for a flamethrower that costs $600. So
we actually ordered them on the MDFI dime.
4 of them, actually.
Yeah.
We're not dual wielding them.
Yeah. I think it's called the XM42. For everybody out there, you can look it up, but it's fantastic. So, I mean, if you could fit that on your belt, that would be awesome.
Absolutely.
But to kind of go into this conversation here, a lot of kind of, I think you hit it there. A lot of people are like, again, 0 to 100. That if they carried something that was less than lethal, well, then I have to go to that. I have A, B, C. I can't go from A to C if that happens. So in this little kind of post here, I mentioned a line from Keith that he mentioned, I think back on the first time he was on. If you only carry a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And so there was a lot of people kind of not agreeing with that. So I kind of wanted to throw this your way to see what you guys would have responded or said. So, for example, someone said, while your hammer analogy makes sense, I just can't see that as being my responsibility. If my charming demeanor and enduring wit aren't enough to diffuse a situation, and you don't leave me an exit, it'll be the gun that I go to deal with. Now, again, that we also mentioned that every situation is different. We're generifying things here, so it's not, a kid jumps on you in the Chuck E. Cheese, so you pull out and, Glock somebody with it. We're not saying that. But I guess what would be the times where maybe we're not going to the hammer, we're going to something else? And again, laws can differ on every state here, but I guess maybe a lot of people don't understand, okay, what would be a good time to use it versus I need to go to my gun? You know, if a guy runs up and just shoves me, you know, is that a time where I can use it?
There are a lot of people that believe that, and unfortunately, they should be prepared for a defense in court for murder or attempted murder if they shoot somebody. What we have to do is we have to break any action down, and you're going to hear this in the law enforcement circles. Cops are judged just like Officer Darren Wilson in the Brown shooting. This was a classic example of what we're talking about. You had an unarmed, by definition, assailant trying to take a firearm from a law enforcement officer. Because the assailant was unarmed, trying to get a firearm, lethal force was authorized because that law enforcement officer, under constitutional use of force, can state that I believe that if he got my gun, it was going to be a threat to my life or serious bodily harm. And therefore, we all know what happened. And so what basically happens is we have to take any of those uses of force and put ourselves in the jury box. And that's exactly what Darren Wilson went through. Is he didn't necessarily go to the jury because it never made it that far, but he was scrutinized by not only the Department of Justice, but by investigators in Ferguson. And they had to look at all the forensic evidence, the witness testimony, which we found out a lot was just completely full of lies, but break down the entire scene. And all Darren Wilson needed was a head nod from the prosecutor saying, he did everything exactly as I would do as a responsible officer or person. So there are people out there, and we see them all the time, that say, well, if this guy shoves me and doesn't leave me an exit, I'm going to shoot him. That's fine, and you may survive the fight in the street, but now you're going to stand or sit in front of 12 people that are going to hear all the particulars of that case. And you're going to try to tell me that as a 6'2", and I'm going off me, 195-pound guy, that some drunk college kid shoved you and wouldn't let you go to the door. So instead of trying A, B, C, or D, less lethal, and I don't mean less lethal by tool, but an assaultive defense by shoving him out of the way and running, or neutralizing him with hand-to-hand, neutralizing him with a pepper spray or a taser if you had that option. I'm not saying you needed it, but you chose to end a life over a shove, where this guy would have had to do a lot more to cause you serious bodily harm or death. And that's the problem, is people saying, well, I would have just shot him. You're admitting to premeditated action against constitutional use of force. If you can tell me I had to shoot him, I was scared that he was going to crush my skull on the bar, okay. I may not believe you, but let's hear the story now. That's what you're saying. But to say, oh, if they shove me and don't let me out the door, I'm just going to shoot him, you're knowingly doing the wrong thing. And that's it. That's where a lot of the disconnect is.
You know, and I think a lot of the issues comes, and taking Michigan for an example, and many other states, they pretty well spell out when you can use deadly force. You know, they put it in black and white. You know, if you're in fear of great bodily harm, death, kidnapping, rape, you know, anything like that, I mean, they go right down the line and say this is pretty much exactly when you can use deadly force. No one really spells out exactly when you can use less than lethal force. So I think people are very hesitant about carrying a less lethal option because there's no, okay, I can look at this list. If he does this, 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 or this, I can go to my less lethal, you know, toolbox and be prepared for that. And I think that causes a lot of hesitation in carrying the less lethal options that are out there.
Well, this,
you know, but it's,
yeah. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
But it's all about learning, you know, the use of force. You know, a lot of law enforcement use of force continuum. You know, they were hammered into our heads in the Department of Corrections. You know, we had pepper spray, and then towards the later end of my tenure with the department, you know, we got tasers, and then if we were outside the prison on medical runs or something like that, we carried firearms. So they hammered it in. You know, this is the use of force continuum, and these are the tools that we give you, and these are when you can use those tools with the, you know, the level of force of which they're displaying towards you. So that's a good place to start. I mean, that's all the departmental use of force continuums line up with the, you know, the constitutional use of force. You know, so that's a pretty good research point to look at and kind of base when and where and how.
Yeah, and there's only one difference, and this is what most people don't know. There's only one difference between a law enforcement officer, you know, Keith being prior law enforcement, me being prior law enforcement. There's only one difference in the use of force continuum, and it's in less lethal. It is not in lethal. For a law enforcement officer, there's so many people right now crying about, police are shooting too many people. Well, stop attacking cops with lethal force and people will stop getting shot. Cops do not have any special circumstances or rights over an armed citizen, a responsibly armed citizen, period. But where it does differ is less lethal, and I'll give you the biggest example. And here's the cheater for everybody out there watching. If you're curious about when can I use less lethal, if you can use your hands and feet in defense, but you cannot use your gun, everything in that you can use an artificial reach tool. Caveat: it must be approved by your state as a approved less lethal. For example, in Michigan, you can have tear gas, orthochlorobenzyl nitrile, CS, but you can only have 1.5 grams of it mixed in. So make sure that your less lethal device is authorized by state law. And any time that you could reach out and hit somebody because they're trying to hurt you, up until you could use deadly force, you can use that device. And what I tell people is, would you rather have to swing and hit somebody and possibly break your hand that you need to drive your car and open doors and scoop your kids up, or would you love to be able to reach out 20 feet away with a less lethal, make it so they can't breathe and they can't see you, and you can get out of there and you're not hurt at all? And so that's the big cheat thing. But getting back to law enforcement, the only difference is Keith and I, and all three of us, we cannot use less lethal on somebody that is exhibiting no force. A law enforcement officer can walk up to all three of us and say, hey, I have legal authority to tell you to get off this front step that you're sitting on, and we go, hey, screw you, buddy, and he's going to go, listen, I'm going to count to 3, and I'm going to hose you down with pepper spray. And we all see those videos where people are sitting there getting hosed, and they're like, oh, those cops are doing the wrong thing. No, they have the authority under their state mandate to use less lethals because they have been certified to do so at a lower level of force than we as civilians are allowed to. But lethal force is lethal force is lethal force, and that's what people need to understand.
Just so everybody knows out there, make your checks writable to MDFI, mail that to Michigan, because the amount of knowledge you just dropped there, we should probably all be paying for. So one question would be, and maybe I don't know if Keith, if you have experience on this, but maybe Trek does. What tastes better, pepper spray, mace, or taser?
Oh man, don't Keith and I. This is a sore subject. Go ahead, Keith.
Nope.
I'll tell you what. Watch Keith's reaction, because this is going to be good. We have both been tased, and we have both been pepper sprayed and tear gassed. And we would always say, I'll do this because I think it's better than the other two. And the moment, if you've seen The Anchorman with Ron Burgundy or whatever it is, where he's like, immediately regret that decision. The moment you get hit with it, you wish you'd been hit with something else.
You know, when you get hit with pepper spray, you say, my God, I'd rather be hit with a taser. When you get hit with a taser, you say, I'll take pepper spray any day of the week. They both suck in their own aspects.
They do. They work completely different, and that's knowing that's the education on top of use of force, and knowing how they work on the human body and what you can expect and what Hollywood has told you are two completely different things.
Yeah, and just like anything, when we talk about firearms and training, there are a lot of people out there that do decide to carry, a taser or pepper spray or whatever it may be, and you got to get training on it. It's not a magical wonder spray or a magical electronical device that just works 100% of the time the way you want it to work. Trek has done extensive training, and I've been fortunate enough to be there for some of it with different pepper spray units. One that sticks out in my mind was that was probably about 3-4 years ago, that long keychain pepper spray that we tried out on one of our students. He volunteered to take the hit. But Trek was standing probably about 6-7 feet away from him when he hit it, and it just kind of came out in a mist, and he had to pretty much step in on him and get within just a couple feet for it to actually hit the subject and take effect. So not all pepper sprays work the same. The delivery systems, so you got to get training on it. Especially with tasers. People are always talking about, especially with law enforcement, why didn't they tase him? Why didn't they tase him? Why didn't they tase him? Well, one, because they didn't have to, and two, tasers don't always work. Right. Depending on where you hit them on the body, the goal of a taser is to get that electromuscular disruption and have the body muscles lock up so they can't be used. In order to do that, you have to get a pretty decent spread on the barbs to be able to get preferably one in the lower quarter or lower half and one in the upper half. If you don't get that, if you fire it from just a few feet away, those barbs don't spread out, and they're going to get shocked. It's going to hurt, but they're still going to have movement ability. They're still going to be able to thrash around, possibly grab the wires, rip them off, because they're very, very thin filament. They're easily broken. So it's not the end-all, be-all. You know, definitely there is a training component when it comes to less lethal, just like anything we carry for defense.
Sorry, real quick. From so far what I found, the best possible training on tasers is watching Cops. I don't know if you guys...
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, and this is a 2-cent moment between Keith and I. We have both the Taser X26 and we have the Taser C2. We use it as demos in our less lethal classes, our intermediate force classes, which is that bubble between no force and lethal force. We are huge proponents of not using a taser if you are a civilian, period. In the state of Michigan, they've pretty much castrated taser owners, one, because they classify it as a firearm due to the fact that it expels a projectile through gas or explosion. And so even in gun-free zones, people that are carrying a less lethal tool that can be used far less force than lethal force, they can't even carry a taser into that area where pepper spray would have been perfectly legal. So that's reason number one for our geographical area. But two, just as Keith pointed out, you've got one shot. If you want 2 shots, that's a $2,000 taser unit. If you want 3 shots, that's a $3,000 taser unit. There are far better, less lethal options out there, much smaller, because people don't want to carry all that crap, less lethal options out there. And you've seen, just as you mentioned on Cops, you can see what happens when you hit a really big guy and it doesn't take effect, and they just get mad. And so what you've done now is you've just really ticked off an assailant when if you had used a much smaller, probably pepper spray unit, a typical or atypical unit, you could have at least blinded them. You could have at least caused respiratory distress. And now you can make a clean getaway or a defense with an advantage because the person can't see or can't respirate properly, and you're good to go, or you're at least in a much better position.
Okay. Here's I want to kind of hit on a few points here, maybe have you guys respond to more of these here. So in this discussion that I had mentioned before, so one gentleman would put, even without going to specific laws, then he puts in parentheses, as if he was saying, you know, this played out in a situation. You know, he kept coming, I was in fear for my life, so I shot him. That is easier to explain than I beat his brains in because I was threatened. You'll answer for every swing. So in that case, kind of what we're talking about right there, would it be, okay, if you're getting into a fist fight before the gun, wouldn't a less than lethal option maybe have been a better bet?
You could certainly use it.
Yeah, the biggest thing is especially nowadays, there's a lot of people in mixed martial arts, a lot of kids. You know, 20 years ago, you saw a lot of the inner city kids and the city kids going into boxing. You know, that was a big thing. Now it's mixed martial arts. You know, it seems like everybody's doing it. So taking your chances on the ground or in a fist fight with somebody that you don't know their abilities, their training, is always a gamble. You know, if you can put yourself into something, you know, to use before it gets to that point, it still might get to that point. But if you can have something that may interdict in that and keep it from going that route, it's always a good thing. People need to learn you're going to answer for everything you do in a defensive situation. Whether it's with pepper spray, with a taser, with your fist, with your feet, with a baseball bat, with a gun, with a knife, with a pen, with a broken beer bottle, it doesn't matter. You are going to answer for every swing and everything that you do. So even if it goes to the ground, you still have to be able to articulate why you kept hitting the guy. If the dude's unconscious on the ground and you're still swinging away on him, you've moved from self-defense. Now you are moved into a whole different category and are going to have to answer for that. So it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to have to answer for it.
Yeah, and once again, with just your scenario of he kept coming, and I finally had to shoot him, there's so many facets of self-defense in that scenario alone. One, how are your verbal skills? How is your preparation? You got a cell phone on you? Have you pointed to somebody and asked them to call law enforcement, to call whatever it is that might be, get witnesses around Are you thinking about surveillance cameras? Are you thinking about who's going to be able to back up your story? If you had an artificial reach device like pepper spray of any kind, there's millions of them out there. Some are crap and some are great. Have you had the proper training? Can you get those hits at 15 feet away as he is approaching after you know that an attack is imminent or has already occurred? How's your ground game? Do you have any hand-to-hand defense? So a lot of people out there are like, no, I carry a gun. I don't need to know how to punch. Okay, good luck with that, because as we know, it's not always going to work. And then how's your physical fitness? You could be the best martial artist in the world, but if you eat nothing but Cheetos and sit on a couch all day, you've got, what, 10 seconds of fighting you? And this kid's been training as a street fighter and been doing it live for his entire criminal career. You're not going to last that long. So and that's what this show's all about. It's not just a gun. It's not just pepper spray. It's a knowledge. It's understanding of use of force. It's understanding the way that you're going to be judged, as Keith mentioned. It's all of the different zones of defense, whether it's too far away, artificial reach, at arm's length, wrapped up, or the Nike defense of running away, and knowing how to talk to the authorities, the law enforcement, and articulate the use of force that was used, what was being used on you, and how your response fit applicably with what was going on. It's the people that I'm scared about, where they're like, so what do you do? And you're like, well, he took a swing at me, so I shot him. That's now on your official statement. They're going to play that in front of the jury, and the jury's going to go, why didn't you punch him in the face? What threat to life and limb was it? You could have just knocked him out, pushed him, ran away, but you said on statement that you just shot him, and that's it.
You know, and there's always extenuating circumstances, and there's always things outside of the box that you have to consider. Yep. You know, injuries, head injuries, things like that. I mean, if you have, you know, whatever it may be, where a hard hit to the head, it has a high likelihood of killing you or turning you into a vegetable.
Disparity of force.
Somebody swinging at you you could very well articulate that as a lethal force, you know, scenario, saying, hey, if he would have hit me, I could have died, and had the medical reports to back that up. So everything is it's situational dependent. Whereas someone like myself or Trek, somebody swings a punch at us and we shoot them, we don't have any extenuating circumstances to consider like that. People really need to start thinking about the ins and outs of this. It's not black and white. It's not just simply I carry a gun so I'm prepared. I mean, carrying a gun is such a vital, but such a small portion of self-defense. I mean, an overall self-defense picture when it comes to just keeping yourself safe in any situation, anything that can happen for. I mean, that could be, you know, weather, storms, fires, car accidents, medical. I mean, firearms are such a tiny part of that whole picture, you know.
Well, I got to capitalize on a great plug here. So if anybody's interested in what he's talking about, exactly right there, episode 623 with Brian LaBeouf No Attack, we kind of break down, you know, the actual pulling of the trigger in a self-defense shoot is 0.001% of everything that happens. And so we break that down. If you guys haven't checked that episode, go do that, because I think you hit it right on here. But something to kind of jump off here, because I got this comment a lot in the discussion we were having on Facebook, was, okay, if I go to deploy, you know, whatever type of you know, an actual less than lethal product, did I just up the ante to where, you know what, this may have only been, I don't know, I guess to me it didn't make sense, but basically a lot of people were worried that, okay, if I deploy pepper spray, now it might make him more angry, then from that point I just made the situation worse.
Well,
a lot of people were scared of that.
Well, think about this. If I come at you with a knife and you pull out a gun and you shoot me and I get mad and then I pull out my gun, does that change legally or morally the reason that you pulled out your gun to shoot me in the first place?
Not at all.
You're right.
Not at all. Less lethal is exactly the same way. Could it possibly escalate the situation? It could. And let's talk big boy rules. Yes, you could. Somebody could come and assault you. You could spray with pepper spray, and they could pull out a gun. It's possible.
I've had individuals that I have certified on less lethals, security team out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and one thing that was really neat is after I certified them, I was also responsible for taking all of the after actions and to learn from it. And we talk about in less lethal intermediate force training that there's no guarantee. Keith talked about tasers, pepper spray. does not work against motivated people. I'm going to say that again. Pepper spray does not work against motivated people. It is a big mindset changer for people that were thinking about doing an assault, but now that they can't breathe and they can't see, they probably will stop doing it. But to somebody that really wants to hurt you, you're probably just going to get them to not be able to see you, but they can still fully function even though that they're hacking up their lungs. And so what ended up happening was an individual with the security team at a local establishment was told he needed to leave. He started doing the pre-assault indicators. They told him, listen, stand down or you're going to get engaged with pepper spray. He took a swing. They got a reactionary gap. They hit him with some of the meanest pepper spray that I have ever been hit with. Sprayed it right in an open mouth and in his eyes. His eyes stayed open. He spit it back out on the ground, and I have the quote that said, he said, and now I'm going to hurt you. And they ended up having to then do a 2 versus 1 physical takedown and detention of the individual until law enforcement arrived. So right there, that scenario, yeah, you may tick somebody off, but what they tried to do was to use artificial reach against a very large opponent to shut him down, make him give up so the law enforcement could take him into custody for assault without any injuries, but then they had to risk physical injuries at arm's distance with a much bigger assailant. Luckily, they didn't get hurt, but nothing's a guarantee. And guess what? The police, when they got there, goes, man, that's crazy. I've never seen or heard of a less lethal not taking effect like that. Good job, guys, because it's not their fault that he got mad. He shouldn't have been doing what he was doing.
Yeah. This is kind of a great way for a kind of go off there is another comment was, I don't believe in carrying a compliance tool like pepper spray or baton. I'm not there to make people comply with my commands other than telling somebody I perceive them to be a violent threat. Now, I think the key word there would be the compliance tool, right? We're not looking for, these other options that we're looking at are not a compliance tool. They're a tool for us to get away from the situation as best as possible, correct?
Yeah, that's a very fancy term for the same thing a firearm is. When do we shoot, or why do we shoot at another human being, or a dog, or a bear, or a zeppelin? It's to stop a threat that could cause death or serious bodily harm. Just as Keith mentioned, when that threat has been neutralized, we do not continue to beat their skull into the ground because we have now changed roles. So a compliance tool, that's the same as saying that my Glock 19 is a compliance tool because if somebody tries to knife me and I shoot them and they fall to the ground, that they've just complied with my wishes. No, the tool stopped the attack. My actions stopped the attack. A pepper spray or a collapsible baton in states that consider, and this is a big one for those out there, some states, especially Michigan, consider a collapsible baton as a kinetic energy weapon, and you can be engaged with lethal fire by trying to hit somebody with a collapsible baton. States like Indiana, that's relatively considered to be a less lethal. I think there's some gray area. I need to do some more research. But different states allow, nunchucks, ninja stars, of course, aren't going to be that. But let's be aware of what your state defines as a self-defense tool versus a lethal weapon. That's huge. But to call pepper spray a compliance tool, no. If someone tries to punch me, I get reactionary gap. I'm lucky enough I get a good shot into the T-zone, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. They go into respiratory distress. They can't see. They curl up on the ground, hacking up their lungs, and they no longer bring the attack towards me that they were doing. I haven't made them comply. I've stopped the attack. So that's just semantics, and the reality is a defensive tool is a defensive tool. It's only where it exists that it differs.
Now, here's something for you, Keith, is a lot of people will say that they carry a gun and a knife. Now, a lot of people are like, it's the exact same thing, and from a legal standpoint, if you deploy a knife and kill the guy, whether it be lawful or not, you're still going down the same road whether it was a gun, right?
Yeah. Speaking on Michigan,
just a lot bloodier.
You're right. Michigan law does not define what you can use for lethal force.
Yep.
It doesn't say, if you're in fear of great bodily harm, kidnapping, rape, death, you have to shoot him. I mean, you can bludgeon him to death with a frickin' baseball bat. You can stab them with a pen. You can run them over with your car. You can stab them with a knife. You can hit them with a 2x4. Bash their skull in with a rock. At that point, the tool that's used, as long as it's not illegal, becomes moot. So, yeah, knives, guns, whatever you're using for lethal force, it doesn't matter as long as, like I said, it's legal. It doesn't matter what you use. You're going down the same road. You're still going to have to answer the hard questions, and go through the after action stuff. But you use what you have available to you at the time.
Well, and I should caveat, there's two great stories that come from what Keith just said and what you just asked. The first one is legal, a legal defensive tool as defined by your state. There are many examples out there of felons in possessions of firearms, which is a 10 to 20-year felony, that have used that firearm in self-defense based on constitutional law and have been found not guilty of the shooting, but been then charged and sent to prison for possession of the firearm. So even if it's an illegal tool, the use of force will still be evaluated based on use of force doctrine. The second thing, and just as we touched about the knife, we have someone that we know who is an avid martial artist, was in a bar with his wife years ago and was disarmed because he was in a bar as far as a firearm, but was carrying a pocket knife, was accosted by three drunk individuals, three large males, who made some comments, I guess, towards the individual's wife, was asked to please just go on about their way. One of the individuals broke the pool cue in half, basically made a stabbing weapon, and as he went in to injure this individual, he was a martial artist, knew how to use his knife. He cut the individual from groin to collarbone, opened the guy up, spun him around. Both his friends saw the gruesome injury and took off running, and the fight was over in a matter of one cut with a knife. That individual spent 6 months in an orange jumpsuit because the tool that he used had a prosecutor that basically, because of the gruesome nature of the wounds, was trying to convict a responsible citizen who used use of force in accordance with constitutional use of force. And it was finally because the jury got involved and said, wait a second, it doesn't matter, his life was in jeopardy. The fact that he used a knife, he didn't use a gun because it was in his car or unloaded or wherever it was because he was at a bar. Had he shot the guy would have fallen on the ground and there would have been two or three little holes in him. So the wounds don't matter. But we have to understand that there are idiots out there in charge in places of power where you may have to fight for your freedom even with a right to shoot. And we see this all the time in the news. So don't let that beat you up. But your education, someone's education on being able to articulate why they did what they did, that's where it's important. Because if you can't, and if he could not have articulated why he did what he did, he'd still be in prison to this day. But it cost him $50,000 to $60,000 in legal defense to get his life back, and he did nothing wrong. So that should sink into everybody.
Well, man, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, that the mental anguish of going through that has to be terrible when all you did was try to save yourself and someone else's life, and then have to be, put through that. But another kind of we talked about this before on the show, and I'd be interested to get your guys' thoughts on it. Would be like knucks, brass knuckles. Now, obviously, they come in various different ways, and there are some very small and discreet, like keychainish type. However, there seems to be this trend of like Sparta, like where if you punch them, it would like decapitate the person almost. But what are your guys' thoughts kind of on that? I'm not talking again, like I know I've seen crazy ones with, again, it's like the Spartan helmet, and you flip it around, you literally are carrying a dagger in your hand. What are your guys' thoughts on those?
Well, here's the thing. Michigan, if you go through their Michigan codified law of prohibited weapons, it reads a laundry list of the best martial arts movie the world has ever known. Nunchucks, ninja stars, even yell Hadouken and creating a fireball out of your hands, whatever it might be.
No video game stuff ever.
That's right. Well, here's the deal. Yes, those things are all illegal. If you had one of those on you, all that is saying is that those items are considered lethal weapons. So you will be judged if you have nunchucks, which only what Chaz from Wedding Crashers, in his bathrobe can really use those and rock those properly. But if you have nunchucks and you try to use them in an assaultive defense, let's say you're the good guy with a prohibited weapon like a nunchuck, you don't understand that's a kinetic energy weapon in the state of Michigan. So if you try to hit that guy that was just trying to punch you, you've actually become a lethal aggressor against them. And if you were engaged with gunfire, it would be completely justified. Here's the thing, though: take any true martial artist, pick the martial arts weapon. You can't poo-poo a weapon just because it's not something we would use. But history has shown us that people can be very proficient. It might be a little weird to walk around with your bow staff to Walmart, but if you can rock it, if you've got the skills and you understand the use of force, Gandalf away. Best advice.
You shall not pass.
Right, don't let them get into the electronics aisle if you're waiting for that first copy of Game of Thrones.
So basically, the Ninja Turtles are not allowed in Michigan. That's really what I've learned so far in tonight's show.
The bad part is Michigan they would arrest the Ninja Turtles for their weapons and probably completely not really realize they're talking turtles. Yeah, that about sums up the state of Michigan.
All right, I'm going to move us on to some other important carry stuff here, and I would like to get your guys' thoughts on it because I know, I literally need to change this week. I know, but what are your guys' thoughts on carrying a emergency medical kit, or there's different names like a patrol officer's trauma kit, which by the way I'm going to plug somebody's here in a little bit, but what are your guys' thoughts on this? I know I should be carrying one, and that's going to change this week, but something I go back to
tomorrow.
Yes. I think Sam said he stole the line from somewhere else, but I'll go back to Sam to where if you have the ability to take a life, you have to have the ability to save a life. What are you guys' thoughts on carrying? Should everyone carry one? If you're carrying a gun, you carry one?
I can tell you this right now. If for whatever reason I had to make the decision between a firearm or a med kit, and I could only choose one to carry on me at any given time, it would be the med kit every single time without fail. You are infinitely more likely to need a med kit and come across a medical emergency than you are to use your firearm. Most people have already. Most people have seen the car accidents or the work-related accidents, or even at home, somebody in your house or maybe yourself, chopping carrots and slip and almost cut your finger off. We've all seen them, but very few people prepare for it. I think a medical kit carried. I carry a truck bag that's fully stocked in whatever vehicle I'm going. Just the other day, Trek and I met up for a business meeting. I hopped out of my car, and my bag went with me right into his back seat. It goes with me everywhere I go. Out on the range, I always have a Dark Angel Medical Dark on me, and our range bag. And then I always carry a pocket Dark on me, either in a pocket or in a coat pocket, everywhere I go. It's vital, and good training on it. It's equally as vital. But yeah, if you go back to the Aurora movie theater, shooting, or any mass shooting in a public place, you get all the people that are just like, well, man, I wish I was there. I just would have shot him in the head, and it's like, cool, superhero, that's awesome. You're 40 yards back in a movie theater that's dark and smoky, and you pull out your little J-frame or your little noisy cricket, and you blast them in the face, and you save the day. And then you look down, and there's 20 people dying at your feet. The life savings didn't change. People's lives still need to be saved, but the tool and how you do it has changed. It went from firearms and to neutralize a threat to now I need to do emergency medical, casualty care to save these people's lives. We just had one of our emergency casualty care classes, a week ago. I tell people, look at the lives that were saved at the Boston Marathon bomb. With limbs, amputated limbs and things like that. There was tourniquets being placed on, just a bunch of people. How many of them were an actual legitimate tourniquet as far as built for either a tack tourniquet or a SWAT team or a RAD or whatever it may be? Zero. They were all improvised tourniquets. Luckily, enough people had the wherewithal to say, ooh, blood going out bad, I need to stop that. And whether it's from previous training or just simply from the movies, which is like one of the things that movies has done right, saying I need to tourniquet and cut off blood flow. And many people, are alive today because of it. So long story short, absolutely, if you don't have a med kit, you need to get one. You need to get trained on it and carry it every single day. Absolutely, unequivocally. If you're not, you're wrong.
Yep.
Period.
Cannot plug Kerry Davis, our medical mentor, enough. I told Kerry years ago that what I really liked was that he made personal medicine cool again. And the sad part is someone shouldn't have to make it cool, but he has. He's made it streamlined, he's made it easy to carry, and he knows what he's talking about, and it's all about life-saving. If you get the opportunity to go to a Dark Angel tactical aid course, absolutely take it. Know what you're doing with the med kit before you buy it. That big needle in there isn't for just sticking anywhere in your body. Get some training. There are tools that you might have in a med kit that you shouldn't be using, and that is a reality.
The needle's definitely one of them.
Don't people. But tourniquet, Izzy bandages, quick clot gauze. The difference between quick clot gauze, the granules of quick clot that are still out there in a lot of medical kits, know the dangers of certain tools if they're used improperly. But just know how to save lives, because Keith hit the nail on the head. Everybody out there has had to do some sort of medical care in their life, whether it's minor or major. How many people have used their defensive firearm in defense of a life? And we don't want to underscore it. It's very, very important, but saving life does not end when the gunshots end. That's it.
Well, real quick here, I'm going to plug, there's a company called Rescue Essentials. It's rescue-essentials.com. They make a patrol officer's trauma kit. It has a SWAT T tourniquet, Z-Pack dressing, gloves, and 3 foot of duct tape for $15.85 on their site. You can get like a holster for it for, I think, $19.99 total, so it adds like $4 to it. And then they offer other stuff as well. You can go up from there, but for something easy and basic for $15.85, it's hard to go wrong. I'll put the link in the show notes.
There's a lot of companies that make quality kit, and most of the kits that you find are going to have very, very similar components. But just for those that may be interested in getting a kit, get to a class where you can get hands-on time with 4, 5, 6 different tourniquets, different pressure dressings, and different components, because they all do the same thing, but they don't always work the same way, and they're not always as easy to apply on yourself or on other people. So, most people are going to go out and buy a full med kit at $150, $175, tear right into it, check everything out, use it, practice with it, and then go out and buy another kit. Like Kerry's class, we are hosting them in July here in Michigan. You'll get hands-on time with all the different tourniquets and pressure bandages and all those things, and you'll walk away knowing what works for you, knowing what you like, knowing what you're proficient with, and have a better idea how to set up your kit, or how what to buy with what components.
I will give out one free medical tip here on the show is don't tourniquet the neck. I just wanted to let everybody know that. No? Oh?
It all depends on how much you like him.
Depends what his name is.
Kidding. Do not tourniquet the neck. But Keith said, no.
Well, here's going to be another one here, and I apologize if we run a little bit long here, but this was a big one for me, and is a flashlight. I was in a car wreck where actually my whole vehicle got disabled, and it was at 4 in the morning. I was coming home from working, and my vehicle was totally disabled. There was no light, so I carry a flashlight on me, and that I was able to hit my reflectors on my vehicle and flash cars, so that way they knew. Again, I was on a highway where at 65 miles per hour, you need time and space to be able to change lanes, move, stop. And I cannot say enough about a flashlight. And in fact, and again, people could say, well, you're overreacting, but I carry a weapon mounted light and I carry a flashlight. This is on my weak side. Obviously, it's on my gun's strong side.
Flashlights are probably one of the most underutilized tools and carried things that there are. sans less lethal, tasers and pepper spray. I never leave without a flashlight. They're useful for a million different things you may run into during the day. And the best thing about them is you can take them anywhere, anytime. I've been through multiple courthouses, airports, all that stuff. Actually, funny story, we were coming back from shot.
I was going to mention
that. Scott Wilson of Surefire hooked me up with a light, 1,000 lumen Fury. Thanks, Scott. And I had a shoulder bag on with some Molly loops. It wasn't full on craziness, but I just had it tucked in there. And Trek and I got on the plane, and I walked past the front row, and I heard the guy say, "Can he have that on here? Can he have a flashlight?"
After they almost tried to take my flashlight?
Yeah, after they tried to take his weapons light.
Oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know the second story on the plane. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I'll let Trek tell that when I'm done. But they didn't have any idea. And I mean, look at planes, and I don't want to, scare anybody, but in a situation where the plane falls out of the sky and you're lucky enough to survive, it's dark and smoky, blunt force weapons, temporary blinding people. I mean, they have so many uses that everyone should carry one. I personally switch between a weapons light and a non-weapons light on my pistol, depending. But regardless of what I do, I always have a handheld light on me because, I mean, if my car, like you said, if my car breaks down, if something goes on where I need a light but I don't need a gun, I'm not going to take out my gun and use it as a flashlight. There's about 4 or 5 of us. One time we were taking a Pat Rogers class up in here in Michigan. We walked into a Walmart here in town towards dusk. By the time we got out, it was dark, and every light in the parking lot was out. Every single one of them. And it was overcast. It was pitch black. All 4 of us, we take out our flashlight, and it's like daylight, surefire daylight going through the parking lot. People are looking at us like, what are they doing? It's like, we're seeing. That's what we're doing. Get a flashlight. So, yeah, many uses, definitely a flashlight. My personal favorite is the Surefire E1D, the single cell. 300 lumens, small, compact, easy to carry in a pocket. I think it's probably one of the best everyday carry lights that there are out there. And I'll let Trek tell his airport almost punching the TSA, the entire TSA, not just one guy, like the entire organization.
TSA. No, just evidently because an X300 Ultra can be mounted to a firearm, they wanted to confiscate it. They already had some poor saps that had a rifle, very expensive rifle scope in their carry-on, and they were holding them up and not letting them go through because the rifle scope could be mounted to a rifle and therefore was a threat to national security, sweet baby Jesus, and the entire United States of America. And that's
because if he whittled a rifle out of his armrest of the plane and mounted that thing, game over.
Yeah, we could do an entire series on how many reasons we have to hate the TSA and how they're actually not doing any good for the United States, but that's for another day.
Well, the best part from that was, and don't forget to, Doug's whole experience at same said airport.
Yeah.
But the best line from that was, well, it can be attached to a gun, and then didn't you respond, well, so can my hand?
Yes, that was exactly my response.
Oh, that is so awesome. So, at the end of the day, let's say someone out there is still not. I'm going to carry my gun and a knife. That's it. If there's one thing for to give to those people, obviously carry a medical kit. But other than that, at least looking or evaluating to add in some sort of less than lethal option, what would you tell them?
A good martial art of some sort, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Pick your poison, do some research, and have a good hand-to-hand game. And you don't need to be a triple black belt, uber grandmaster, whatever it might be, but have a ground game, and understand that, when someone in a bad situation can get you in a position of disadvantage, if you don't know what you're doing, they can render you a pretzel pretty daggone fast, but if with a little bit of training you can get up, get out, and get out of that situation. If you're going to relegate, and I would just say to people, don't make that statement. Don't say I'm going to carry just a gun and a knife. There's a lot of days where all I'm carrying, aside from a tiny pepper spray on my keychain, that tiny little sucker, and that's all I'm carrying as far as less lethal. There's other days that I've got a 400 mile an hour double barrel pepper spray gun on. because the likelihood of a non-lethal yet assaultive encounter goes up exponentially. It depends on the work that I'm doing. So I'm going to plan accordingly, just like I do with any other defensive gear. But why relegate yourself and say no, I'm not going to ever? You're just setting yourself up for a bad situation. That's it.
And it's all personal preference. It's all your decision. Whether it's a gun and only a gun, a knife only a knife, pepper spray, or a combination of thereof. It's a personal decision, and we'll never tell somebody they're wrong for what they're doing as long as it's in the bounds of the law. That's a personal choice you have to make. I mean, you have to give yourself the best chance of survival. You have to look at the holes in your defensive plan, and we all have them. Everyone has them. Every single person has holes in their defensive plan, whether it's something that they're not as good as they should be, or they don't know about something, or they just decide not to carry something. Everybody has holes, and it's being honest with yourself and saying, as long as you're making that decision, and an educated decision, saying, I'm not going to carry pepper spray, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to get some hand-to-hand defense, like Trex said, and I feel that that's adequate enough, then hey, rock on with your bad self. That's your call, that's your life, and we are not going to tell you that you're wrong for it. But whatever you do, get training on it. Realize that jiu-jitsu and things like that are a great starting point, but that itself has its holes in it. Most of the jiu-jitsu that and the training that I've had in the MMA world there's rules. Okay, you versus you start. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. How many UFC fights do you see somebody pull out a gun or a knife? You don't, because it's against the rules. There are no rules on the street. So there's a lot of things in martial arts that if you do it on the street, it can get you killed, because you're used to fighting somebody that's on that same playing field as you. And a great class for that, and I plug it all the time, is Craig Douglas's ECQC. Amazing class that really works in the elements of martial arts into the real world weapons-based environment. Phenomenal class. If you haven't had a chance to train with them, definitely highly recommend that.
Okay. I do want to give a shout out here. We actually have some I'm assuming they're long-time listeners, because they're very astute people in the chat that are agreeing with everything you guys are saying. We have Mind Matrix, we have MJ0865, we have Jared, we have Duras, we have Lee, we have Militaristics. Hope he's surviving up there in New York. We have Tim, we have Ronnie, we have tons of people out there. I don't know if I missed the Not Perfect one. Tons of people out. So I appreciate you guys chiming in there. I see you guys had a little bit of a conversation. That's awesome. I'm going to throw you guys a little bit of a loop here, because you mentioned the streets, and I can't have you guys on the show.
I'm from the streets, dude. Born and raised, South Central Elma. You may not know where that is, but it's from the streets.
So we're going to play a little game called Operator as Fooey.
Oh my God.
Or Get You Killed in the Streets. So, Trek, we'll have you go first, and then the following one is to you. And then we'll just go back and forth. So
you better not get all the good ones. I got so screwed last time with this.
No, I think I made it even pretty good. So we'll start with you, Trek. Hoppies 9. Operator as Fooey, OAF, or Get You Killed in the Streets?
All right, say that one more time.
Hoppies. It's OAF or Get You Killed in the Streets?
It's not going to get you killed in the streets, that's for sure.
All right. 1 point slings.
Is this on me still?
Nope.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Trek.
No, it's on Keith. 1 point slings.
Between the two, not going to get you killed, but there's better options out there, so the first one.
Okay. Then we're back to Trek here. So G2 rip ammo. Operator, get you killed in the streets.
Well, I just got the easiest one. That's going to get you killed in the streets.
So switching back here,
M1 freak in the sheets.
M1 carbines for you, Keith. Operator.
Ooh! I just picked one up. Operator is Fooey. I got actually a mini G.
Trek Serpa holsters.
That's going to get you killed.
Every time.
Keith flashbang bra holsters.
Well, that's a can of worms.
Killed when you get home.
Back to Trek. The Ronnie Glock conversion kit.
I don't even know what that is.
You put your Glock into it, and it basically makes it into a rifle. Operator? Okay. We'll go with that.
Yeah, it's operator.
Keith, ceramic plates. I'm giving you the good ones. You're getting the good ones.
Yeah, but this is so middle of the road. Probably for most in the streets, it's going to be operator, sans multi hits and all that stuff. And if you drop them and crack them and anything like that. So for most, I'd say operator.
Okay. Trek, Boone's Farm.
Oh,
you smacked by your partner, I can guarantee you that.
The Boone, come on, it's operator.
He chases it with Zima.
That's right.
Keith, 45 ACP. Operator, get you killed in the streets.
I hate you. I hate you. Operator.
Ah, beautiful. Trek, lasers on handguns. Operator, get you killed in the streets.
It's not going to get you killed in the streets.
All right. Keith, revolvers.
Killed in the streets.
Oh, you just, he's no longer related to MDFI.
Watch the comments explode.
Trek, back to you. Temple Index. Operator, get you killed in the streets.
Oh, good stuff. Operator all the way.
So, bonus question to Keith.
Oh, crap. Come on.
Temple indexing to 50 Cent.
Oh, I know where this is going.
You know it. He didn't see the video, did he? He didn't see the video.
No, he didn't.
Oh.
Killed in the streets.
We'll make sure you see that video later.
Okay.
The last one, track 300 Blackout.
Operator. Good stuff.
Ah, beautiful. So there it was, guys. That was our OAF, Operators Fui, or Get You Killed in the Streets. So obviously, great job to our panelists there. They did an excellent job on that, and they didn't mess it up too bad. So good job, everybody.
That's the standard of which we are judged. We didn't mess it up too bad.
That's not what we said this entire interview. That was it right there.
Yeah. But so we're going to wrap it up here. But you know, if from the discussion we had, and again too, I really think that this is a great starting point for people. You know, whether it be me and knowing I don't carry enough medical kit, and we've had a discussion before. My ground game sucks. And I overcompensate probably with having different tools, and we're going to hit on all that on all of our shows next month. But walking away of one thing for someone to reevaluate or evaluate what they do, what they carry, you know, at the end of the day, does it just go get training and that'll help, you know, whittle down the list of where they're at and where they want to go and what they need to get?
Biggest thing to me, don't ever throw a potential defensive tool out. Just prioritize it. That's it. Don't throw it out. You can put it all the way at the bottom, but never say it has no use whatsoever. That's my best advice.
You got anything, Keith?
Back to time out with you.
Nothing that I haven't said 100 times before. Find your training flaws, find the holes, fix them.
All right.
It's that simple.
And now, by the way, MDFI is traveling all over the United States, so they can actually take a class with you guys, right?
We are going to be in a few different states this year. We have Texas up on the website, and we're working on North Carolina, carbine class in North Carolina towards November. Then we're going to be probably within the next week or two launching a couple announcements over towards the west side of the continental USA.
That's already been announced.
Yeah, I already announced that, buddy. Sorry. That's what happens. and
yeah, I guess we're going to California. I just found out about that today.
And, you know, we'll come to you guys. If you got a ring, you want to have us out, let us know what you want. We'll come to you.
I can tell you I get emails all the time from people in California saying, hey, do you know anybody that's coming out? Do you know anybody in my area? So here we go, trainmdfi.com for you guys that are in California that are looking for someone. You know, email these guys, maybe you can set something up. So we're going to wrap it up here. I do need a shout out. We got Pitt Archer, by the way. I'm going to email you here shortly. Also that joined us. And then Duras mentioned, I have to kind of quote him here, would be Ermagid. I have a right to carry my victory revolver in a flap holster. Haven't been killed in the streets yet. I just thought that was.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. You know what? He's my new best friend.
I know exactly who that is. And I'd be shocked if you even come out of your house have a chance to be killed on the street. Love you, brother. No. But it is what it is. Revolvers suck.
But for everybody out there, you can be sure to visit practicallytactical.com, and you can click on the deals tab. We have a bunch of promo codes for Rand brands, EDC targets, modern Spartan systems. Also, you can go check out our podcast website, practacpodcast.com, and view all the other shows here on the Firearms Radio Network as well. I highly suggest you check out the Gun and Gear Review podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. We covered the Glock 43 release this past couple show that I guest hosted for Ryan, as well as actually we covered a lot of the stuff that we talked about here on the show, some EDC type of stuff, some non-lethal stuff. We covered some products on that show as medical kits and a few other things. So you can check out episode 74 of the Gun and Gear Review podcast. And, of course, you can check out all the shows on the Firearms Radio Network by visiting firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. Also, we really want your feedback here at Practically Tactical, so please send us any compliments, feedback, guest suggestions to Nick at firearmsradio.tv. All revolver complaints you can email to Keith.
Right to Keith.
Right to Keith. Those directly to him. Also, for all you listeners up there, please give us a review on iTunes. It would really help us out. So, thanks you guys for coming on. Again, too, it's one of these. For me, I'm just walking away with I need to think things through because I think it was okay. I have a gun. I've accomplished this checklist. I think it. Before it was okay. I need to go down the line and just do I have this checklist marked off? And you know what? It's maybe a little more. It's not black and white like that. It's not a yes or no. It is more of, okay, am I thoroughly thinking through of what I could possibly run into or where I go, and am I doing stuff accordingly to that? So for me, I viewed this as just an awesome show of at least being able to evaluate what I'm doing and what I'm taking with me. That maybe I'm not thinking about all the options that are available to me.
Awesome.
There you go.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. So as always, guys and gals, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for listening, as we greatly appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.